Earlier this year, my girlfriend, 29 female, and her sister inherited a cabin when their mom passed away. It's a pretty nice place, with a private lake and everything, where my mother-in-law used to spend 9 months out of the year alone. Since June, my brother-in-law, 36 male, and I, 31 male, have been spending our weekends there, fixing it up. We've done minor repairs, built a second bedroom, put a pier up for the kids, that sort of a thing. I've had a couple of visitors over the weeks. People who knew my mother-in-law came over to give condolences. Locals were curious of the renovations we were doing, and so far everyone's been really nice and civil. We did put up a private property sign at the start of the lot, and for the most part, people have respected it. Worst thing we ever got was an F-150 that came into the parking lot, reversed and went away. We know it was an F-150 because since we weren't up there during the week, and it's a couple of hours away from home, my sister-in-law insisted we set up a surveillance camera. This will be relevant later. Last month, I went there by myself because the in-laws were attending a wedding. I didn't mind because nothing I had planned for the weekend really required two people. However, when I unlocked the cabin, I was hit by a thick draft of cigarettes. We don't smoke, and neither do the in-laws. I grew up in a smoke-free house too, so I'm especially sensitive to that sort of thing. Didn't find the source, but it lingered and made me nauseous a whole weekend. Apart from that, there wasn't much weirdness. There were some dirty dishes in the sink, which could have easily been my brother-in-law not cleaning up after himself. But I couldn't shake the feeling that someone had been inside. I had no proof, it just felt wrong. In the following weeks, I started monitoring the surveillance camera feed. That's what screws with me the most. Weeks of reviewing it and nothing. Absolutely nothing. Sometimes the motion-activated lights would come on during the night, but that could be a deer or a porcupine, nothing concrete. Except we just came back from there today, and now I think I have the smoking gun. Since we had a big build planned, re-roofing, we set off about an hour earlier than usual to do most of our work before the worst of the afternoon sun. That might have thrown off whoever had been lurking. When I got in, I distinctly heard the door on the other side of the cabin slam shut. They must have heard us arrive and darted off. I'm not really one to give chase, especially when I don't know if the person is dangerous, so I went back to the front patio. By then, they had already disappeared into the forest. The sliding door was indeed unlocked, which I don't understand. We all have the same checklist to go through when we leave, and every door is listed on there. We did the job, but now I feel like the sky is still around and watching us. He thought he knew when we were supposed to get there. He didn't just realize we came on weekends and stayed clear Friday nights. He knew our exact schedule, enough to fool us for weeks. I suspect he also knows about the camera, too. If you stay out of the frame, it never catches you. I'm thinking of installing another one on the opposite side. I don't want to tell my girlfriend her mother's cabin is being hijacked by some creep because she'd never set foot in it again, and it's the last piece of her mother she has left. But I also don't want to run into this guy ever again. My family, me, mom, stepdad, went on a trip to the Smoky Mountains outside Pigeon Forge when I was roughly 14 or 15. They rented a fairly secluded cabin in the mountains. No others could be seen from ours. The house setup was where the first floor entrance side was ground level, and the other side was a wraparound balcony, and then a downstairs bedroom. I stayed in the room on the main floor, and it was on the gravel roadside. My mom and stepdad were downstairs. The first night, I didn't sleep well since it's a strange place, and I'm just laying in bed. No clue what time it is, but I start to hear the gravel crunching outside. I listen with my heart racing, and I distinctly remember it sounding like footsteps slowly walking to right outside my window. I listened for a while and was sure it was not an animal, because the steps were slow-paced and deliberate, as if something or someone was trying not to be heard. I ran downstairs and told my mom. She blows it off and says it's an animal, since, yeah, we are in the woods. The next evening, while everyone is still awake and the lights are on, the house alarm goes off. My mom and stepdad are looking around, and we find a window cracked in the first floor living room where I'd been sitting. The window's on the balcony side, and none of us had touched it. We shut and locked it, and they go back downstairs, and I continue reading on the couch. Not half an hour later, and the alarm goes off again. At this point, our nerves are pretty shot. They come back upstairs, and my stepdad goes outside to the gravel drive area. My mom and I are by the door, which connects with the wraparound balcony. Not sure why I had a big rock or what made me throw it, but I hurled it over the balcony, making a loud noise. This must have startled whoever was there, because they ran down the balcony and out the exit on the other side. They believed me then. It was definitely a someone, and not an animal. We packed our stuff and got the hell out of there right then. It sticks in my mind, and it's still so vivid. I'm glad we left. This happened when I was a Girl Guide, and to be honest, I can't remember the exact age I was. I think maybe 10 or something like that. Anyway, the Girl Guides group I was with had an annual trip planned. Basically a bunch of rambunctious preteens and about 4 adults, if I can remember. Packed with our sleepover stuff, we were pretty amped up. It involved a drive up our local mountain where we would park at the top and hike for an hour or so until we reached our destination, which was a large cabin in the middle of the forest. Above the door, I remember there was a wooden carving with some name. I think the cabin was named after Lord Baden-Powell's something. There was a rocky bluff, and there was a cleared area for outside fire pit, outhouses, gatherings, etc. Otherwise, it was forest all around. Now, this was the end of March in British Columbia, Canada, and it was still quite cold. Our hike up to this cabin had patches of snow still peppered throughout the forest, but you could hear these whiskey-jack birds do this long whistling thing. It was pretty cool. As soon as we arrived, we settled in and worked out where we were going to sleep and stuff like that. The upstairs was one open A-frame room with cots for us to put our sleeping bags on. We just had to open them up from the folding position they were in. There were supporting wooden beams running vertically up the cabin, I guess old tree trunks, when it was built. They were poking from floor to ceiling, and it was easy to see this large cabin was very old. I mean, you could feel the history all around you. There were carvings in some of the walls, with initials and whatnot, and although you could see things were well maintained, it was just this energy about the place I couldn't put my finger on. We were given the orientation and showed where the official spit pit was outside. In case you guys don't know, a spit pit was a hole dug in the ground with a water pump close by. Basically, it was where you would brush your teeth and spit into the, pit. It was about 10 feet away from the cabin, and the outhouses were a bit further, if I recall. Anyways, as our first evening loomed, we all enjoyed a big spaghetti dinner, helped clean up, and then went outside to sit around a campfire and sing songs, tell stories. We asked if we could tell ghost stories, and for some reason the answer we got from one of the leaders was a very firm no. Okay, I thought. They told a few stories about the history of Girl Guides and Scouts and how many of the youth had helped develop their skills, blah, blah, blah. Actually, it was pretty nice sitting around the fire, especially when the hot chocolate was served. The birds up the mountain made a really interesting long whistling sound that seemed to go into the night. That's what I remember anyway, but maybe it was chipmunks or squirrels. I don't know. But a bunch of us whispered about being bummed out about not having ghost stories and planned to have a little fun of our own later on. And that's what we did. I remember all these scary, juicy ghost stories being told in low, foreboding voices that were actually terrifying. We were all in our jammies up in the cots, and we decided to get out our flashlights. Well, one of the girls decided to start telling a really scary story about Bloody Mary. She told it so well. I just remember all of us locked into her words. That was when one of the girls got a really weird look on her face. I guess she had enough of the spooky stories and wanted to play tag or something else and turn on all the lights again. It wasn't that late, so there was still time for games, although many of us were really having fun scaring each other. A game of something like tag broke out, and I thought I would use that time to go brush my teeth. Another girl, we'll call her Michelle, wanted to do the same. I think neither of us wanted to go alone. So we gathered our toiletries and headed downstairs, and then outside to the fire pit. I think she just needed a friend to accompany her, and fair enough, I was still scared too, although I loved the feeling. A couple of the leaders were still sitting around the fire, and we let them know we were just off to brush our teeth. There was a rustling of a breeze in the trees, as well as some forest sounds, maybe the chipmunks again. You could hear the sparks of the fire as it slowly died down. Michelle and I were talking about the Bloody Mary story we just heard, and she remarked to me about the expression on this other girl's face when she didn't want to hear anymore and play games instead. I was about to answer her when, all of a sudden, everything went quiet. There was no breeze, no sounds of the campfire, no forest sounds, just this empty, quiet void. We both looked at each other, and I just remember almost holding my breath, as if the forest was trying to listen to what we were saying. The temperature seemed to drop, and this bizarre feeling of fear and doom overcame me. I think Michelle felt it too because of the way she looked at me. Just then, we heard this blood-curdling scream. It came from upstairs of the cabin. Something had happened with the girls, and we ran inside along with the leaders, and it turned out that one of the girls, the one who didn't want any more ghost stories, had been running around and smacked straight head-on into one of those wooden poles. When we arrived, we could see she was half out of it, and the other girls surrounded her, trying to help, and told us what happened. Her face was so vacant, and there was concern of a concussion. She couldn't get up or anything. It's really strange, because those playing with her say that they thought she was pushed into that pole, although no one was behind her. The medical crew from the mountain came to assist and took her away for observation. It was really scary. The look on her face as they took her to the stretcher. I don't think I'll forget it. I know we spent the whole weekend at that cabin, and things were definitely kept low-key, but I just remember feeling that all I wanted to do was go home. There was this feeling that just hovered over us. The Girl Guide leader scolded the girls for running inside and being reckless, although the girls swear no one was running. I'm sure we were just concerned about our friend, and that's why we had strange vibes after that, but I remember a few of the girls mentioning having really bad dreams while being there. Needless to say, that last morning when we left the cabin, all the girls packed up and were eager to leave. So we all started back down the trail again. I happened to glance back at this cabin, which all of a sudden looked so imposing, like it was serving up a warning to behave next time, or else. So, my family owns a cabin on a small lake up in New Hampshire. We go there every summer. It's basically our home away from home. There are other houses on the lake, quite a few near us, but beyond that it's pretty rural. Miles of woods stretch beyond the lake houses, so there's really no reason to be in the area unless you were hunting, own a lake house, or were visiting the lake for whatever reason. So one night, maybe 6 years ago, it was late, probably around midnight. My ex and I were laying in bed, just chatting about whatever. All of a sudden, we hear footsteps outside the open window. The window lays only about halfway up on the wall to the side of the bed and is situated so that it opens right at the bottom of the bed where our feet are. The ground around my house is covered in a layer of pine needles that drop from above, so it's pretty hard to walk quietly. But these footsteps sounded like whatever was making them was trying their best not to be heard. They sounded relatively close, but we rationalized to ourselves that they were probably made from some sort of animal. A couple of minutes later, and we hear them again. Except this time they seemed closer. They seemed to be right outside our window, still trying to move quietly. At this point, the two of us are starting to get a little freaked out. To our mutual horror, we look down and see a hand slowly coming through the window. Obviously, we scream and wake the house up, and my parents come running out of their adjacent room. We tell them what happened, and my father rationalizes it as an event being a figment of our imaginations. To this day, I don't know if he's right. The weird thing is that both my ex and I saw the same thing, so how could it be our imaginations? To this day, I feel uneasy staying in that room, and I always make sure to shut that window before I go to bed. So, I just moved to Toronto in June 2017 from the UK, and one of my housemates at the time had invited me to come stay at his friend's cottage in a rural area of Quebec, to which I quickly accepted. To paint the picture, this cottage was well off the beaten track of the mountainous, hilly terrain of Quebec, and it had a lake on its doorstep. I believe this was one of maybe 3 cottages in the area. The first night we got wasted, and I woke up on the second day pretty hungover. However, 4 of us decided to take the car to get cigarettes and booze from a convenience store on this mountain about 20 minutes away, in the middle of nowhere. We picked up beer, and instead of getting straight back into the car, we decided to crack a beer and go for a walk down this wooded trail across the road from the standalone convenience store. We get about 15 minutes into this walk, and I was getting the impression the trail hadn't been used in a long time. There were branches and trees taking up the pathway, which we had to climb over. However, eventually we came to this stream, which blocked us from going any further. On the other side of the stream, there was what looked to be an abandoned cabin. This is the creepy part. We were laughing and joking, I think maybe smoking a cigarette, when all of a sudden, this lady comes walking out of this cabin, holding a freaking handsaw and a drill. She walks up to the other side of the stream and proceeds to just stare directly at us. I started getting this super creepy feeling, and I know everyone else felt it too, but just held face. Anyway, the staring went on for about 5 minutes until eventually she just went back inside into this leather-faced looking shed or cabin thing. I managed to snap a quick video. On the video, I paused it and took a screenshot of what is hands down the scariest looking person I've ever seen in my life. This was back in the summer of 2019, I believe. I was camping in the beautiful Washington forest with my family. Cousins were there too. To be a little bit more specific, we were in the Wenatchee National Forest. Anyways, the main people to consider in this story are my sister and cousin. We'll call them Anna and Bill. It's like our second or third night in the forest. Yeah, the story takes place when it was nighttime, of course. Me, Bill, and Anna decided to play a couple of games of hide-and-go-seek. It was me and Bill's turn to hide from my sister since she was caught first on the last round. I remembered we wanted to make this round hard for her to find us, so we decided to hide on the roof of our cabin that we always stayed at. Yes, when I mean camping, I mean we had a cabin in the woods. Not sure what to call it if we go up to a cabin instead of being intense. Anyways, we climbed out the second-story window and out onto the roof and hid up there. We had a good view, maybe a good 20 to 30 feet away, over the fire pit where our family of 5 or 7 was, talking and having fun. So if we saw Anna come out and look for us, we would see her come out the front door, almost directly below us. Anna was scared of going anywhere outside the cabin in the dark forest for obvious reasons, so we knew she wouldn't go far, nor would she try to explore elsewhere, but inside the cabin or around the fire pit area to find us. We waited and talked for quite a while on the roof and almost forgot Anna was looking for us. But something had caught our attention while we were up there. I remember one of us pointed out to see that Anna was standing behind our family, a couple feet away behind everyone else. It was weird, but me and Bill automatically figured she gave up looking for us and went out the back door to join our family at the fire pit. There was a back entrance that faced the fire pit, and where me and Bill were hiding on the roof was a part of the cabin in the front, with the front door below us. But as we observed Anna, we noticed something interesting about what we were seeing. We couldn't make out any details of her. I mean, we could tell who everyone else was down by the fire pit, because the fire illuminated everyone's faces pretty well. But when it came to Anna, we really couldn't confirm if it was her because she wasn't being illuminated as well by the fire. I mean, we just assumed it was her because it was someone standing there whom we didn't see when we originally went up on the roof. A strange detail that we noticed was that she was actually standing really far behind our family. In fact, she was practically in the brush. To paint a detailed picture, the fire pit was next to the river, and there were other cabins next to us, with nobody occupying them at the time. The closest cabin was the one with the brush, kind of separating our cabins. The brush was about 3 feet high. Our family was all kind of facing their backs to the brush area. But as we were still observing what we thought was her down at the fire pit, Anna came out of the cabin. She came out of the cabin door below us, along with our aunt. Automatically, me and my cousin stayed quiet because we weren't quite ready to give up our hiding spots just yet. We heard Anna talking with our aunt, telling her how she couldn't find us, and asking if my aunt knew where we were. Me and my cousin trying not to laugh because the fact she genuinely couldn't find us almost sent us laughing. I don't know why I found it extremely funny, but we did. This, however, distracted us for a second off the topic of who we were just seeing down at the fire pit. But we watched as they both walked toward the fire pit to join the others. We then remembered what we were just thinking moments before. We automatically looked over at the spot where we thought Anna was with our family, and whoever was there wasn't there anymore. Me and Bill now thinking it was maybe another family member we had just forgotten was here, and that was who we saw down at the fire pit. We shrugged it off and decided to go and join everyone else at the fire pit. As we made it down and met up with Anna, we were laughing and making fun of her for not being able to find us. We then brought up the topic of us thinking she was down there at the fire pit behind the adults because we had sworn we saw her standing there behind the family. This caught our family's attention. As they heard us discussing things, they all turned to us with a look of confusion and my uncle asking who was behind us. We told him that we thought Anna was the person standing behind you guys at the fire pit not that long ago. Even though it was pitch black around us with the fire as our only light illuminating everyone, I could tell they had a look of being genuinely confused. Someone coughed up telling me and Bill that everyone was sitting down and the only people not at the fireplace was me, Anna, Bill, and my aunt who went to the kitchen to make some food right after we went to hide. This sent a wave of alertness because whoever we saw was none of our family members who were sitting the whole time and never left the group except my aunt. We looked at the spot, and so did everyone else after we told them what we had just seen. I mean, I thought it was probably mind tricks, considering it gets really dark there at nighttime, and the illusion of someone actually standing there. But even my cousin saw what clearly looked like a person. We weren't crazy. We had genuinely seen someone or something stand behind everyone else at that fire pit. After everyone confirmed that nobody should have been behind them, and also confirming that me and Bill weren't seeing things, my uncle went inside and grabbed his pistol. We let the family dog out to see if whoever or whatever we saw was still nearby. Trust me, the family dog, whose name is Lucky, isn't scared of much. But when we let him outside, something really had us all confused and still gives me the chills. We saw Lucky go out running into the forest, but then just slow down right at the edge of the light where the porch lights meet the forest. We could barely see him, but he just stood there on the edge, head low, fixed on something, not moving, barking, or even growling. Whatever he was doing, He just stood there. We looked on as he seemed frozen standing there and looking into the forest. At this point, I was just really scared because this was not normal behavior from Lucky whatsoever. There was nothing ever to explain what we had seen. It's just a really creepy moment.